Namaste and good evening. I, Swati Solanki, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Talk. Today, we have gathered for a special talk on education for sustainable development as a part of the series, The State of Environment #Planet Talks. The series is organized by the Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development at IMPRI. The moderator of our today's session is Dr. Simi Mehta. Ma'am is CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute. It is my privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for this very important discussion. We have with us Dr. Ram Boojh. Sir is an environment and sustainability professional with rich experience of over 40 years in diverse fields with the government, university system, civil society, and the United Nations. He is currently the CEO of the Mobius Foundation and is also advising UNEP on a transboundary landscape initiative. He headed the Ecology Division of the UNESCO South Asia office in New Delhi for over a decade, and he also convened the South and Central Asia MAB network. He has served as Regional Director of the Center for Environment Education and Assistant Director of the Environment Ministry, Government of Uttar Pradesh, India. Dr. Boojh is involved with several universities, institutions as guest faculty, visiting or adjunct professor, which include Universities of Manchester and Bradford, UK, MIT, University of Michigan, Environmental Law Institute, Washington, DC, BHU, NEHU, JNU, and many central state and private universities in India. He is the co-founder of the World Ocean Network, France, and the executive board member of the Conservation for the Oceans Foundation, USA. He has published over 100 research and technical papers, popular articles, and 15 books. He has to his credit many honors and awards and recognitions, including the prestigious Science Academy Medal for Young Scientists presented by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, former Prime Minister of India. My heartiest welcome to you, sir, for today's pertinent talk. Now, I invite our moderator, Dr. Simi Mehta, to initiate the discussion with her opening remarks and invite our speaker to take this discussion forward. Ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati, for that wonderful introduction, and good evening to everyone. I really welcome all of you to this very important #Planet Talks. So all of us know that sustainable development is encompassing the individual and also often overlapping various pillars of social, economic, and environmental development. And there is a need for all the stakeholders, everyone in and between policy and people, to know what it is. More so because the challenges like rampant inequalities, poverty, pandemics, unemployment, ecosystem degradation, and climate change, it impacts each and every person on planet Earth, of course, on different levels. So what are the elements and intricacies of this knowledge or education for sustainable development? What are the actions that must be taken at different levels so that we sincerely do not compromise the future generations' ability to enjoy the fruits of development? To delve into all these questions and beyond, we have with us Dr. Ram Boojh, an expert in the field, and there would be no one better than Sir to be speaking on education for sustainable development. So thank you so much, Sir, for accepting our invitation and for being with us this evening. I invite you to begin your lecture. Over to you, Sir.
Thank you so much, Simi, and of course, a wonderful introduction by Swati. And of course, greetings to all the colleagues from this institute. You have initiated rather a very interesting initiative, Planet Talks. And when you talk about the planet, it's really in crisis. And I thought that when Simi approached me about, I think we connected through LinkedIn. That's a very interesting platform. And I thought let me talk about education, because this is one most enabling factor to bring about a change, transformation, what we all require in this age of planetary crisis, as we say. So I will straightway go to my presentation. I'm just going to share it so that so education for sustainable development, or in brief, we can call it ESD. But before I go for it, I think let me talk about the context under which this education we are talking about, education for sustainability, or ESD, or sustainability education. In fact, a few months, I think in the month of August itself, yes, last month, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, came out with its report, and the physical science basis. And in fact, it's a very alarming report. And UN Secretary General has rightly termed it as, quote, red for humanity. Because of course, the report has reiterated that it is humans, we are responsible for whatever is happening to our planet. And whatever changes in climate system are happening now are widespread, rapid, and intensified. And of course, unprecedented in thousands of years. So this is happening at a very rapid rate in terms of intensity and frequency. And of course, that has never happened in the whole climate system over thousands of years. In this scenario, of course, COP26, which was supposed to be held last year in Glasgow, is going to happen at least from November 11 to, I think it's around 2 weeks summit. And this is happening in the background of devastating wildfires in Europe, Russia, and the US, and a record-shattering heat wave in northwestern North America, and extreme and deadly floods in Germany and China. This is everywhere. If you talk, every day something is happening. I was in Hyderabad in IMPRI, the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Sciences, and they have a supercomputer where entire ocean, this movement is comes live, and you can see every moment one or the other event happening in the ocean systems. That's wonderful. When I saw that, I was really amazed how the whole the global climate has been altered. And in this scenario, COP26 is going to happen. And as rightly said, this is a make or break for the planet, this summit. Similarly, of course, UN Biodiversity Conference is going to happen in Kunming city of China. This is again very, very important. Last year it was to happen, but this is going to happen in 2 phases. First in the month of October, and then again in April, in 2 phases. First one is virtual, and then it will be physical. But before that, this intergovernmental platform on biodiversity and ecosystem services, this is a science policy platform, like IPCC is for climate change, and this is, you can call it as IPCC of nature. And this is very alarming situation, because humans, again, we are responsible in driving 1 million species towards extinction. And in that scenario, there will be a global biodiversity framework, which is already draft have been circulated. And this will put a pathway to recovery of biodiversity. Of course, UN has also launched the decade of ecosystem restoration. So this whole vision document will provide a framework and a pathway for ecosystem and species recovery. This is again very, very important. And of course, I just saw this. I am just putting, because today in Hindustan Times, this was the news: 18% of India's tree species face extinction. This is again very alarming figure. There are certain figures available, but this is just trees. Forget about other flora, which are really every species is under great threat. And historically, if we go into environment and development, there are a lot of these historical events. Stockholm in 1972, when environment and development issues were being discussed. At that time also, education was considered as a key element for environmental protection. And came our common future, the World Commission on Environment and Development. This is famous report which defined sustainable development. And again, first Earth Summit was held in Rio. It came out with Agenda 21, and chapter 36, whole chapter was devoted to education. World Summit on Sustainable Development, WSSD, was held in 2002. And this was again where I was involved in a group of some 27 organizations to prepare the draft declaration for ESD. And here there was a commitment for declaration of UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development. Japan was the leader. This Japanese delegation led this whole team, and this was very significant. One thing I would like to mention here, because first conference 72 was all about environment and development. Sustainable world was not there. Our common future, somehow it defined sustainability. 1992, in fact, again, there was sustainable development was in a way didn't find much traction here as well, because this was again United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. But by 2002, this whole conference turned into sustainable development. In fact, environment, which was having the front seat, the driver's seat, driving all other three pillars of sustainability: the environment, society, and the economy. So in WSSD in Johannesburg, it was social issues like the gender, water and sanitation, poverty, hunger. All these issues dominated in WSSD. And again, of course, the 2012 was Rio Plus 20, second Earth Summit. And here again, the emphasis was, the theme was at the Rio Plus 20 was green economy for sustainable development. So because of 2008 economic crisis, the third pillar of environment, the sustainability, that was economics, that took the front seat. And in this all scenario, of course, economists, they came out with the concept of green economy, but world leaders did not get much support from the world leaders, the green economy concept. And in that scenario, there were large, very widespread consultation for, like in the Millennium Declaration came out with the Millennium Development Goals, which ended 2015. So world wanted a post-2015 goal, and this comes the Sustainable Development Goals, very comprehensive document. And of course, 2015 was the Paris Climate Deal. But everywhere, education was a common thread. And this is what, as I said, economy, environment, and social community, these three pillars of sustainability. And of course, sustainability, education is the common thread in all. These are some definitions. I think you all know about this sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's very, very oft repeated definition. But this I find the US Environment Protection Agency definition as more appropriate, that sustainability is based on a simple principle. Everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends either directly or indirectly on our natural environment. To pursue sustainability is to create and maintain the conditions under which humans and nature can exist. Rather, I would add here coexist in productive harmony to support present and future generations. This is a somewhat very comprehensive definition. But in terms of sustainable development goals, there is a separate goal 4 on education. But as you can see here, this goal is connected with all other goals. And 4.7 is specifically about sustainability education. And this is what it says: by 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and the skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development, sustainable lifestyles, human rights, a lot of things. So this is a common thread, I said, for the achievement of all other goals. Understanding ESD, because this whole sustainability education term is born from the need for education to address growing sustainability challenges, as I enumerated in the beginning of this lecture. And this is action-oriented, uses innovative pedagogy to enable learners to develop knowledge, skills, and awareness to take action to transform society into a more sustainable one. It empowers learners to take informed decisions and responsible actions for environmental integrity, economic viability, and a just society. It integrates all the 3 elements, 3 pillars of sustainable development. It's about lifelong learning and is an integral part of quality education. This is what I just said. It also talks about the global citizenship, interdisciplinary problem solving like global challenge, critical thinking. Why ESD change and uncertainty, which is happening every day. That is why it's called as lifelong learning through ESD. Employability, a lot of green jobs, sustainable jobs are coming up. Quality agenda, in fact, that is very important because gradually we are getting access to education, universal access to education, most of the countries, including India. But the main issue is that of quality in education, and ESD provides that quality element into the education and student opinion because it's participatory. This is a statement I thought this very important. We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. These are certain statements, and I think I can illustrate in these 3 premises that education crucial for development. However, not all kinds of education lead to sustainable development. Education that promotes economic growth alone may lead to unsustainable consumption pattern. This is very common because economists think, say for example, population, while sustainability professionals say that rise in population will lead to the resource crunch or resource pressure on resources and ultimately unsustainable development. But economists, their theory always promotes like the population dividend, or if we have reached certain level of like China is now, because of economic reasons, is trying to again coming back to the 2 or 3 child policy. So this is again like the economic growth with the education which promotes is not sustainable. And transformation of how we think and act to create a more sustainable world. Individuals must become sustainability change makers. This is very important, requiring knowledge, skills, values, and attitude that empower them to contribute to sustainable development. Basically, this is a transformative education, ESD, because you had to become a change maker. Think and act differently, not based on the values and sustainability values. And ESD empowers learners to take informed decisions and responsible actions for environmental integrity, economic viability, and a just society, all three in a very harmonious manner for present and future generations. This is a very, I would say, very important statement, because we are increasingly asking if what people learn is truly relevant to their life, if what they learn helps to ensure the survival of our planet. Education for sustainable development can provide the knowledge, awareness, and action that empower people to transform themselves and transform societies. This is a very important question. Like, whatever education that we are getting, is that relevant? And that is why ESD is holistic and transformational. Just a sec. There are certain issues, I don't know why.
Would you like us to run it?
So the bottom left, if you can come on the screen to the bottom left, left-hand side.
Yes. So, as I said, a decade of education for sustainable development, 2005 to 2014 was there. And that was to strengthen the policies, the practices, and of course, the educational tools and curriculum during that whole decade. Decade ended 2014. And after that, of course, because world was looking forward to Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals, so we thought, the ESD professionals, that let us wait for a year. And once these Sustainable Development Goals come, then we will think about what would be the ESD, the future of ESD. That is why there was a period, and there was a global action program on ESD was launched, which is called as GAP, 2015 and 19. That was 5 years gap period. And after that, in 2020, ESD for 2030 was launched. In fact, a lot of analysis was done, and these are the 3 more premises on which this future of ESD is dependent. Awareness not enough, more attention to learners' transformation process, as I said, because a lot of awareness is already there, and more attention to deep structural causes of sustainable development and technological future. Emphasis on it. This is very relevant in terms of COVID crisis. And these 4 action areas were decided: promotion and improvement of basic education, reorienting existing education, developing public understanding, awareness, and training and workforce. And there are several approaches, and I think just click. These are the several dimensions, you can say: environment education, ESD, climate change, biodiversity, nature education. All these are various approaches. And these are certain, like teaching outdoors, green curriculum, eco clubs, several methodologies, you can say, which are being applied globally for ESD. And to enhance creativity, imagination, and enthusiasm, hands-on activities, interactive learning sparks imagination and unlocks creativity. Learning transcends classroom, means opportunities for experiential learning enables to make connections in the real world. And this is very important, because most of the learners and educators, they are thinking beyond classrooms nowadays. Builds critical creative thinking, decision-making skills, promotes compassion and understanding. Nature exposure, excellent backdrop or context for interdisciplinary learning. Fast sensitivity, appreciation, and respect for the nature. It combats nature deficit disorder. It's a very, this also provides joy of learning, healthy lifestyle, very important, empowering, and building communication, collaboration, creativity. So these are some 8 methodologies or pedagogical skills that are needed. Then there are these teachers, which are, because of course last year we celebrated World Teachers Day on 5th October. And of course, India, we celebrate 5th September, a day before, but it was teachers leading in crisis, reimagining the future and how these teachers, they are taking lead in attainment of sustainable development goals. These are some of the premises. I am not going to go into all these details because how teachers are taking the lead. This is again the 2030 ESD that was adopted recently in May 17 to 19 in Berlin. There was this official launch, and these are the 5 elements: advancing policy, learning environment, teacher and educators, youth, and communities. So 5 elements, and this is a very complicated slide, but in nutshell, whatever this ESD 2030, this provides is all these 5 elements. And in Berlin, in fact, this ESD 2030, where it was launched, and learning for our planet, that was the hashtag, and act for sustainability. And Berlin Declaration, these are some of the quotes I have taken. UNESCO analyzed educational plans and curriculum framework in close to 50 countries and found that more than half make no reference to climate change, while only 19% speak about biodiversity. That is why it calls for ESD to be a core component of all education systems at all levels by 2025. This is very important. You can just see the global challenge of climate change. Only 50% curriculum make the reference, and 19% biodiversity finds very little, only 19% reference. And the host country, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, very important. She said, we need training for sustainable development, not to be a privilege, but accessible to all people. The success of the ESD for 2030 will bring us closer to all SDGs. And then again, this is again, fight against climate change begins at school. 2021 is the year in which we will overcome the pandemic and embark on a sustainable development model for the future. That must include ESD. If we miss this occasion, we will lose decades. This is a race against the clock. These very important statements in support of ESD. And Mobius Foundation, along with close to 3 dozen partners, we are organizing every year since 2019 the International Conference on Sustainability Education. In fact, we started much ahead of this ESD Agenda 2030. Rather, our input was taken into account. And this is some of the glimpses of that. These are the various partners, most of the UN agencies and many environment professionals, they were involved in this, including Government of India. ICSC began in 2019. And of course, last year, 2020, we discussed about this pandemic, and simultaneously National Education Policy was launched. So last year, Mr. Amit Khare, Secretary Education, he was on the floor and he gave a very interesting session on new education policy. UNESCO came out with this post-COVID learning 9 ideas for public action. And this is what, and there was, of course, this year also, we are going to have this session, this conference in some 11 sessions, parallelly going on virtually. And one of the sessions is related to the post-COVID education and how these digital media is helping both the access technology, content, all these things will be discussed there. Education policy, as I said, that was discussed last year, this year also. Role of teachers. And finally, in fact, I feel the ESD is hope for the future. Economic growth model has led to environmental degradation, social injustice, and economic inequalities. Many education systems support such a model. That is very important statement. To live in a more sustainable world, we need to rethink the purpose of education systems, what is learned, what is tested, and how it is taught. ESD provides a framework to address difficult changes and contemporary challenges, environmental, social, economic, or local versus global. Aligning education with sustainability will help us create an environmentally robust, socially equitable, and economically fair world. This is, in fact, this education is hope for the future. And these are the youth. In fact, Greta Thunberg, Fridays for Freedom, and this Vanessa, these all, and our own Lysipriya from Manipur. So they all are at the forefront on the ESD and climate education. These are some of the Greta, and Amy Lucas is basically promoting vegan or vegetarianism. And she says if the world, 50% of world turns to vegetarian or vegan, I think we will have 14% reduction in greenhouse gases. Similarly, all these, this blue always is a sustainable lifestyle. Yes, so though we need more such voices from youth. So thank you very much. I think I had to rush through because I was very conscious of time. So 18:35 is, so now, yes, Simi, floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Wonderful presentation, I must say. And in fact, there are quite some convergences in the ways that I was also hoping that you would be addressing. And I'm sure that there are questions that would make up for the quick slides that you have presented. So I'll just start with a question that has come up from the audience, and this question is from Mr. Shravan, who asks that we Indians have a deep respect for rivers, soil, mountains, trees, and animals in our prayers and rituals. But in behavior, most of the time, we do not show positive civic sense towards the environment. How can we apply ESD to mend such behavioral faults? So basically, ESD for behavioral change. You touched upon this, so if you could share your views on it, sir.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that traditionally India has been a sustainable society. Means we respect nature. We rather, I would use the word, not only celebrate natural or biological diversity, both cultural diversity and natural biodiversity. We consider rivers, water bodies, forests, and many trees is sacred. So all these, and traditional societies, even now, they are in a way living more sustainably in harmony with nature and the environment. So they are the I would say the custodians of sustainability. Say, for example, in Northeast India, the tradition of sacred forest groups, not only Northeast India, Western Ghats, particularly Nilgiris, in Rajasthan, those Saranas, in Madhya Pradesh, the tribal areas, all these sacred groups, they are really the harbingers of the biological diversity, and these kind of values and attitudes. So ESD tries to inculcate such values and change the attitude, the behavioral changes, what he's referring to. And that is what we call as transformational education. So there are several ways how you can bring about this kind of transformation. Of course, it will take a lot of, as I said, there are various approaches, but one of the approaches is to bring ESD into curriculum and also the public awareness aspect about the sustainability, these practices. So I hope I could.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, yes. So you mentioned about the indigenous knowledge in passing reference right now. Could you talk about how actually can we harness, because much is not there in the mainstream literature and also the information sharing. So how can we harness indigenous knowledge and their ingenuity, and then align that with the ESD? And ESD, as you said, it has to be, incorporated in the formal learning process. So we can take that formal learning process in a bit, but if you could talk about the indigenous knowledge.
This is my pet subject, because I, in fact, started working in Northeast. I was at the Northeastern University, Shillong, and there I was working with a group of almost 30 scientists with Professor Ramakrishnan, who just retired from Jawaharlal Nehru University, who's professor and dean there. So he was I consider him, he was my guru. So in fact, there we worked for many years. And even when I joined UNESCO, I continued working with the traditional societies on cultural landscape, a very unique concept which UNESCO, of course, recognizes, cultural landscape, and a lot of areas on the World Heritage List which had outstanding universal values because of those, not only the landscape, but through the traditional knowledge, the indigenous knowledge system, as well as the local environment. So that landscape is shaped as a cultural landscape. So there are several ways how to harness this indigenous. Now, of course, I rather harness within many terms. It comes to the exploitation. Say, for example, the cancer drug, which was from this Vinca rosea for the leukemia. It was those communities, the tribals, from where this knowledge was in this Central American forests. It came out. They didn't get any benefit of all those, because multinational, they harness that knowledge. The another example is the Kani tribe in Silent Valley in Kerala. They were having the knowledge when Dr. Pushpangadan was touring that area, along with a group of scientists in exploration of those medicinal and aromatic plants. Then he came across a herb, which was, tribals, they were using that, and they were not tired, and they were all the luggage and whole day they were without eating anything, without even drinking water, and these scientists, they get exhausted. Then he came to know from their knowledge that this is what this Ayurvedic drug came, the Sanjeevani, and which is, but Dr. Pushpangadan made it sure that tribal communities, whatever benefits from the patenting of that knowledge goes equally to this Kani tribe. So there are examples, and so this is one area where the scientific evidence, because traditional knowledge is much, much richer than what we call the formal knowledge system, through the books, through researches, and through all. But naturally, all these traditional knowledge need to be validated for the benefit of these knowledge must get benefit out of it. These benefit sharing arrangements must be there.
Sure, sir. Right. Thank you, sir. This example is very encouraging, and I hope that there are more examples in the country that could actually lead the way the whole world is moving towards. So coming to the second part of my question on how can we not restrict ESD as just part of a formal learning process. First, it is a challenge to actually incorporate it as a formal learning into the formal learning process. And second, also that it reaches other age groups, not just the, the student. We are not just simply targeting the student population, but also to all age groups who are beyond that curriculum stage of their lives.
I think this is a very important aspect. ESD is a kind of approach to education. Of course, formal system, there are mechanisms, curricula, classroom transaction, all other kind of methodologies. But in the formal system, there are methodologies like going beyond the classrooms, going into the nature, learning from the nature. But it also provides a scope for lifelong learning, ESD, because it's for the work, like we talk about the green jobs or sustainability jobs, related jobs. So there also it provides for every sustainability or ESD is the concern for each citizen. That is where this global citizenship education comes into, and UNESCO has combined ESD with the global citizenship education. Because as I said, it provides access to everyone, every citizen, access to education, lifelong, then quality. It brings quality element into the education. And the final is global citizenship education, because you consider all the challenges which we face today are interconnected. Climate, we cannot say that, means if we do produce greenhouse gases here, it is going to impact the polar regions or the Himalayas. So similarly, biodiversity loss, you do not know the connections in the nature. What is something happens in China, you destroy the biodiversity and one virus escapes and becomes a pandemic world over. So everything is interconnected. So that is why this global citizenship education is so important for everyone's learning.
Right, sir. So you spoke about the NEP, and you were quite optimistic about it. You are quite optimistic about it. So what kind of, does it actually involve something like rerouting the rote learning process, which is usually followed in our country, to something more that is interactive, fun way of learning, and which is really creative, and it enhances the learner's ability towards ESD? Is there any talk of ESD in the NEP at all?
No, actually, I think if you read the NEP, it in the very beginning itself it says that it is aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And most of the elements, when I read it, most of the elements of SDGs, these ESD are there into the national education policy. And it says that education has to become not the teacher-centric, but learner-centric. And means the knowledge, skill, it's much emphasis on action oriented, because they say, I mean, it's also based on a lot of studies based on the curriculum analysis, and that say the curriculum provides information and knowledge, but it doesn't lead to action. So that is where it skills and actions right from the early childhood education. This is because connecting to the real work, real life situations, the workforce, or to the skills, all those kind of connections they have. So basically, basic elements of ESD is included there. Last year when Mr. Amit Khare, Secretary Education, because that was our sustainability annual conference, when he spoke, he in very detailed explained each and every, from the early childhood education till the higher education, how this sustainability has been woven through the national education policy. Of course, he said the real challenge will be to weave it into the curriculum, the process of curriculum development, which is ongoing currently. And hopefully, when we develop the national curriculum framework, there these things will find more traction, more emphasis.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for that response. I would like to take a few questions from the audience now. This is by Dr. Geeta Devi TV. She asks, sir, sustainable development is a contested notion, especially due to the conceptual contradiction involved in it, and there are many debates that are still ongoing. Wouldn't it be more practical and better to talk about education for sustainability instead of education for sustainable development? What are your thoughts on this?
No, I fully agree with what she is telling. That is why when I was within UNESCO, UNESCO is intergovernmental organization, and countries are there, and countries think about the development. This all is in the development context. And in fact, as I said, historically, environment also began with environment and development debate, and that gradually culminated into sustainable development, and our common future is defined it. And when you talk about the national concept or international, they prefer the UN context, particularly prefer education for sustainable development. But I think it is much more broader to talk about education for sustainability. Rather than that includes, that's more comprehensive, and I would say a more integrative approach. So I fully agree what she is telling.
Sure. Thank you, sir. The next question is on what do you think on any efforts by the government for promoting green careers at undergraduate levels for the students? Is there any boost?
Oh yes, NEP does talk about the entrepreneurship and internships, education for life, or education for the work life, all kind of terminologies, or you can say the jargon are there. But jobs, green jobs, are the decent jobs is one of the SDGs goal. I think it's goal 8. And the green jobs are going to come in a major way, because all kind of disruption that we say, climate change itself, Glasgow, this COP26 is going to be, I think, very, very life-changing event. And once if India is telling that by 2030, we will have almost 450 gigawatt of solar and renewables. I think that's a huge transformation that will provide huge job scope into renewables. Similarly, in biodiversity area, as I was telling about traditional knowledge system, so that will be there. The other thing, I was talking to a young man who runs an NGO called We the Naturalists. He has come out with a platform about the green jobs, and he has enumerated almost more than 500 such opportunities, and he provides a platform. You can, like LinkedIn, you can connect with that platform. I am going to have a meeting tomorrow. Almost, he said, sir, I need almost 3 hours. So I said, okay, 2 to 5. He will be coming in person all the way from, he has already landed in Delhi from the Mumbai. He was in the corporate world. And he has also all kind of the funding opportunities, the green jobs. So in that area, IT-based solutions, when you talk about, they're also in the new technologies, as I said in one of my slides, I could not elaborate in all those, the IoT, the artificial intelligence, everything. These will play a part in providing, ushering in the transformation in job sector, and also jobs which are sustainable and green jobs. So naturally, one has to be and these were because this transformation is going to happen very rapidly, and this will not be like transitory, or not will be for a long period, but it will be keep on changing. So the dynamics of this job situation, in that scenario, these like environment is so dynamic, and climate system, the biodiversity ecosystem. Similarly, the job scenario will also keep on changing. It will require new set of skills, and where this whole sustainability education will play a major role.
Definitely, sir. And I think also in this, the whole role of corporate responsibility towards expanding ESD would be important. Maybe that could be advocated, ensured also, and also implemented. So closely related to that is a question on why is the onus for sustainability and ensuring collective action repeatedly put on the individuals? What about the accountability of the large companies that cause great proportion of emissions? And how about also, mentorship? Since you are meeting the person tomorrow, mentorships, incubators, so these can be also put promoted more vigorously, so that there are more startups and which foster green jobs actually.
Yes, definitely. Individuals, of course, they are important, but it's communities, the business community, for example. In fact, I am very pleased to share here that almost all the major these businesses, they are already having the sustainability cells, sustainability policies. You can see, means take any corporate and you will find them up, whether they are really, means I was in Germany 2 years back, and some of these corporate, they wanted to produce a sustainability barometer to measure all those kind of things. So it's still, when the UN system is also thinking of, but corporate is, I think, alive to sustainability challenges. And CSR, this lot of money goes into sustainability practices and sustainability projects. So that is one. The other aspect is particularly the sustainability professional, the community of NGOs, institutions, or the civil society groups. I think they are, for them, the challenge is, of course, the COVID situation really for everyone put up a challenge, particularly the NGO communities. I was discussing in one of the webinars about the challenges of resource generation for these, and there were plenty of. But there are examples, the communities, they are working together, sharing their ideas, sharing their resources, and that way, championing the cause of, as I said, all those sustainability crusaders, champions, or ambassadors. So these kind of things need to be promoted by businesses, by all of us. And that way, we will develop a kind of professional community, which will be, businesses are already there into this business in a very meaningful way. Most because this is the need of the hour. They think that future is there in that area. So that is why they are on board.
Right, sir. So the final question to you is a question by a student from Delhi who asks, are there evolving priorities when it comes to sustainable development goals and education for sustainable development? So for example, are there certain goals that needs to be prioritized, or certain goals that needs to be attained to a greater extent before other goals are worked on? And how is this incorporated in education for sustainable development? And are there any differences in these priorities for developed and developing countries? So is it country specific, and how would you address this dilemma?
Actually, when these SDGs were being formulated, in fact, there were goals decided. Say, for example, from goal 1 to 5, poverty, hunger, gender, these were the unfulfilled, unfinished agenda of Millennium Development Goals because they were not achieved. Sixth goal, which is even education goal, because universal access to education was not achieved, goal 4. Sixth one, water, means we could achieve the half millennium development. It was the half of those who are not having access to water, so that goal was achieved. Similarly, other goals, but there were new goals, and these are I think from 11 to 15. So there were goals which were not unfinished, then there were goals which were partially achieved, then there are new goals, which is about the consumption, production and consumption patterns, climate, life on land, life underwater. These are the environmental goals, and currently world is prioritizing this. If you think in terms of priority, in fact, most of the leaders, they say that climate and biodiversity, these two, if we achieve them, then naturally we are going to address planetary crisis in a major way, because if these crises are there, there will be more poverty, there will be more hunger, there will be scarcity of water, there will be floods, droughts, disasters, there will be job losses. So there will be a lot of all other goals will get impacted. So that is one. Of course, there was a survey, the mid-term, that was 2020 by the UN. And of course, these climate change was given #1 priority. And of course, along with the goal for education. And of course, biodiversity, which is goal 14. No, goal 15. 14 is water, the oceans. Water is goal 6. So these are some of the goals which are really, really very, very important. And these are the planetary challenges, #1 planetary challenges. And ESD also prioritizes of all these into its context. But naturally, since ESD takes a holistic view and going interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary and integrated, so it tries to take a balanced view of all, as I said, all the goals. And basically because education or ESD is an enabling element for achievement of all other goals, all the 16 other goals. Education is a common thread for all. So that way, in fact, planetary crisis on the one hand, social and economic issues on the other hand, and of course, the global citizenship, cooperation, and all those things going in tandem. So it's a very complex world, not easy. And education and bringing sustainability concept into it is really a challenge for all of us, all professionals, educators, as well as, of course, learners as well, because it's a collaborative process. It's cooperative endeavor, and it can succeed only when we all work in a combined and determined manner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Certainly, I fully agree with what you have to say. Thank you so much, sir. So we are now moving towards the close of the session. So I'd just ask you if you would have to make a few policy recommendations on how to integrate, incorporate, and also collaborate on ESD. What would be your major pointers be, and your concluding remarks, if any?
In fact, whatever I said in the preceding sections and in the presentations, most of these have policy implications. And ESD sustainability has to find kind of, I think I would suggest, as I said, many corporates, they are having sustainability policies. Similarly, government must come, of course, SDG is a framework for sustainability. But Niti Aayog, which is a policy think tank in India, we must rather do advocacy with them to come out with a overarching sustainability policy. Means educating about sustainability and a sustainability policy that will bring into force the whole integrative approach, because we have all those kind of standalone policies in the country, but these policies may not be if we think in compartmentalize, because if we think something about one aspect and just ignore the others, naturally all your efforts will go in vain, because and this is also I was talking about, we are going to have a session in this webinar on sustainability education, one session on circular economy, circularity. And circularity concept is that connecting each thread. Like in government, if you have 24 development departments, connect them. Find the common threads where from one's input can be beneficial to the other, and similarly establish that circularity or sustainability. In industry is going towards circularity in a major way, because that is for them it's to their requirement, and regulatory policies also like extended producer responsibility, that policy and the legislative piece is now in place. So they have to think about circularity, and that links through the artificial intelligence, or this what we call at the web world, IT enabled, because that way, through that information system, you can know which is our waste, which is our we are doing production, but generating a waste, for us it is waste, but it can become resource for someone. If you know in that cycle, some other unit B which can take this, and so it goes beyond reuse, recycle, and recover. Rather, it becomes every cycle, end of the cycle, as we see, is it thinks beyond that. So similarly, I think when we talk about sustainability policy, it's a kind of transformational policy going beyond these standalone or the compartmentalized policies in silo, or the actions, the intent to policy in silos. Rather, we need to think integrative. How, and sustainability is one common thread, I said, that can connect everything. And I think this is in the modern, which we call as this Industry 4 revolution. So this can find a very good use into this.
Absolutely, sir. And also it also incorporates interdisciplinarity. In fact, transdisciplinarity, that is where sustainability being the common thread connects all the areas of learning, which then moves on to so many areas of actual work. So thank you so much, sir. It was wonderful talking to you and learning from you. I mean, it was listening from an expert like yourself on sustainability and education for sustainable development has been actually an eye-opener for us. And I think we need to make continuous efforts to learn and research more on this, and so that this can also be really proactively taken up by the governments, as you have rightly pointed out. And also the hope that and the optimism that you present, in terms of sustainable change makers, that all of us, you're advocating that all of us have to be, and through the global citizenship education, this is very important. And in fact, NEP, when you're talking about national education policy, it also offers the hope, and perhaps India could be the Vishwa Guru in fostering education for sustainable development. So there should be no looking back, and we should always, move towards this transformation that we are aiming for. So thank you so much, sir. It was really wonderful talking to you, and on behalf of the Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development, I really extend my gratitude and thanks to you, Dr. Ram Boojh, for spending time with us this evening and for imparting us a lot of learning and also a lot of food for thought, what we can do and what we should be doing as responsible citizens. And also thank you to all attendees for your questions and for your participation, and to everybody who was watching us on Facebook Live, and to everyone who will be watching us later on YouTube and listening to our podcasts. So thank you so much and wish you all a very good evening.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Simi and the colleagues, for such a wonderful initiative. And it was really a pleasure to be with you all.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
Thank you. We hope to keep learning from you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, always welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good day.